Hey guys, it's Liv here, bringing you guys a video that we are on tier maker for right now. We're going to be tiering the Pokemon coming into the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra DLC. If you guys enjoy, leave a like down below, comment, subscribe if you're new. About 40% of you guys are not currently subscribed, and I would love to get that number down to like a 20%. With that being said though, let's get right into the video. So, unlike with the video that I actually saw that sort of inspired this, but I figured there was a better way to do it personally, by Wolfie Glick, where he tiered Pokemon based on like how good they would be. So like Kyogre would be S tier, Groudon would be S tier. We're not doing it like that. We're currently tiering off of improvements made to the Pokemon. So we're going to tier off of how much improved a Pokemon is currently. So for example, Kyogre, it got just Heavy Slam, no new items, no new ability buffs. It's probably going to be D tier. Now we'll go a bit more in depth when it gets to the Kyogre slot, and I'll go into why I think that is the case more thoroughly. But realistically, the way that we're doing this is D tier is pretty much nothing guided, or at least nothing of relevance. C tier is, it could maybe use it, at least a couple moves in its new move pool. B tier is, while the moves aren't insanely game-changing for this Pokemon, it'll probably use at least a fair bit of them in some regard. A tier is, this Pokemon actually becomes really viable because of these moves. And S tier is, it's absolutely game-changing for the Pokemon. Now, this could also play into items too, such as heavy-duty boots. It could play into ability buffs. It could play into stat changes. Whatever does. Actually, I don't think any of these mons got stat change. I think it was just Aegislash. But regardless, though, it could play into a variety of factors just that might make the Pokemon better or worse. If you guys enjoy it, as I said, leave a like down below. With that being said, we're going to start off with the Nidos. Now, the Nidos both got the same moves. In terms of Isle of Armor data mines, they got Scorching Sand, and for the home data mines, for the non-armor tutors, these Pokemon got Sand Tomb, Mud Shot, Rock Blast, Hex, High Horsepower, and Body Press. So, while these Pokemon do seem like they're pretty much going to be in the same placement, they actually personally aren't. I'm going to put Nidoqueen in D tier, purely off the fact that it's Scorching Sand, while it is cool, it's probably the only cool move this thing got, because it does already have a Stopping Tantrum, so it's never really going to click High Horsepower, in my opinion. And otherwise, I mean, Scorching Sand is never going to be run because it's just a weaker Earth power because of Sheer Force. Nidoqueen, however, because Nidoqueen does have actually a fair bit bulk over Nidoking, I'm going to put this in C tier because of the fact that this could maybe actually run a Scorching Sand set defensively when it's going for like a hazard lead, and possibly go for some nice just defensive merit with that. Now, I don't think it's a ton better. Personally, I think Nidoqueen is a very, very borderline CD tier, but I think it's enough of a merit to where you could justify it. Next up, we have Jinx, and Jinx is probably going to also be C tier. For Jinx's move pool buffs, it gets Charm, Encore, Sword Power, Ice Will Spear, Psychic Cut, Psychic Terrain, Future Sight, and for the armor tutors, it gets Expanding Force and Triple Axle. Now, Jinx's physical attack stat to take advantage of a lot of these is pretty bad. However, I could see some use out of Future Sight, especially in merit with its already acquired Teleport, on top of also Encore being useful. Sword Power is okay on this. I think it could be a cool Enumon, especially with options of heavy-duty boots. I think this at least has some merit. Its typing is also not bad this gen, just in general offensively. That could definitely be really useful in lower tiers with, as I mentioned, boots. And then also Nasty Plot being intended with Sword Power could actually be really cool, especially with manual terrain. Maybe that'll be a thing in lower tiers. If not, I mean, I think, never mind, indeed, it's definitely not NU. There's no way in hell. Regardless though, Jinx could be a cool option. I don't think it's going to be game-changing, but it could be cool. Next up, we have Omastar. So Omastar didn't get a lot. It got Pin Missile, Liquidation, and Meteor Beam. So I'm going to actually put Omastar in D tier. While this thing doesn't have a strong rock move for a special side, it's really just Ancient Power. If you were to not max this, you're taking 2 turns, or you're running a Power Herb set, which is very, very bad, because obviously if you're running a Shell Smash set, you kind of want the Sash or the White Herb to pop it off. And if you're running a Hazard set, you're going to run Sash. So running a Power Herb just to get Meteor Beam to not take 2 turns is really, really bad in this Pokemon, in my opinion. And on top of that as well, the difference when you're maxing, Ancient Power is going to be around 120, I believe. Meanwhile, you're going to be getting a 140 off of Meteor Beam. And while that might make a difference in some situations, I don't think it's enough to merit running it unless it's maybe like a VGC rain team. But even then, this is such a bad Pokemon, I don't think it's ever going to take advantage of it in that sort of metagame. So we're going to put this in D tier. Kabutops got a few bit more tools in his move pool, however. Kabutops gets Rock Blast, Psycho Cut, Cross Poison, Razor Shell, and Leech Life, and Meteor Beam. So Meteor Beam is quite useless, however, Leech Life is actually really, really cool on a Pokemon like this, because it does give it an option to hit grasses. Well, it did, I believe, already have Poison Jab, if I'm not mistaken. Kabutops getting the option to actually run Leech Life is really, really cool, because this is a boosted move now, and actually this didn't have that up beforehand. So Leech Life in general is just really, really cool in this Pokemon personally. So we're gonna put this in, I think we're actually gonna put this in B tier. Physical Rain Sweepers that are viable are really hard to come by. It's really just like Mega Pert, and then at least in the national setting it's Mega Pert, and then like lower end it's like there's Seismitoad, which could be either way, and Kingdra, which could be either way. But for dedicated Physical Rain Sweepers, Kabutops is, besides Mega Pert, the only actual one. And in terms of a VGC standpoint, this might actually be a cool Physical Rain Sweeper. Has really cool coverage, a lot of options for cool max moves actually. Base 80 speed is also really cool in Rain with a solid attack stat. So it can definitely take advantage of a lot of these new physical options, in my opinion. Next up, we have Aerodactyl. So Aerodactyl actually has a lot going for it. For one, it has the Dual Wing Beat added to its options, which is honestly really, really cool. Other options it gets are Meteor Beam, Rock Blast, Dragon Dance, Hurricane, and Psychic Fangs. So Rock Blast and Dual Wing Beat, in my opinion, are a really cool option for this. Rock Blast for potential lead matchups, because this could potentially break other Sash leads or Sturdy leads. Sturdy leads, I guess, would be a lot less so, but it would really just matter for like Crustle, I guess. But Dual Wing Beat also helps a ton with that as well. So Rock Blast is just kind of forced, put in the back. On top of this as well, Dragon Dance is okay, but I personally value Home Claws a lot more for the accuracy buff. It is a cool option though, nonetheless, to force prep for it if it had a really good matchup, but Home Claws is mostly going to be clicked at that point anyway. It has an obnoxious speed tier. You don't really need to buff it that much more, at least in most matchups. But I do think that Dual Wing Beat holds a ton of value to this Pokemon. On top of that as well, Aerodactyl also gets heavy duty boots this gen, which is really, really cool on it. Also, the fact that Aerodactyl itself gets a lot more merit out of its base form in-game now because Megas aren't a thing. So there's a lot less faster Pokemon than it. Stuff like Mega B, Mega Sceptile, that can at least fire off hits versus it. And while those ones aren't doing a ton of damage, the fact that it's now not worrying about B at all. Well, to be fair, B is garbage, so you wouldn't have to worry about it in general. But just in general, Monzo would otherwise normally outpace stuff like Zam. They can Mega and Speed tie it at least. It's gonna guarantee outpace base Zam, so it doesn't have to worry about stuff like that. So with all that stuff in mind, between the fact that as well, it's just a lot harder to naturally outpace this Pokemon, I'm gonna put this in S tier actually. I think that Arrow's typing as well is really, really cool, and the fact that it's a viable flying step now instead of just Aerial Ace, this Pokemon can definitely be a menace. And if we take Megas into account, this would be like an S+ tier, because Dual Wing Beat with Contact with Tough Claws, that'd be gross. Next up, we're gonna get into Articuno. So Articuno didn't get a lot. It got Weather Ball, Icicle Spear, Air Slash, and Brave Bird, and then for tutors, it got Dual Wing Beat and Triple Axle. Sadly though, again, similar to Mons like Jinx, Articuno doesn't really have a good physical attack stat. It's better than Jinx's, to be fair, at 85. And I mean, Articuno's special attack isn't much better, so this could actually, unlike Jinx, probably have more merit to take advantage of these sort of move pools. On top of that as well, though, what I will say that merits Articuno a ton is Heavy Duty Boots. So Heavy Duty Boots actually does give this a ton of merit as a low tier defogger. Pressure is really cool on this as well for defensive variants, so I'm actually gonna put this in B tier as well. I don't think the moves necessarily improve Articuno a ton, but I think that the Heavy Duty Boots as well merits it enough. And the moves could be definitely used, or at least usable, I should say. So we're gonna put this in B tier. Zapdos got Dual Wing Beat, Rising Voltage, and then Hail, Weather Ball, Eerie Impulse, Air Slash, Brave Bird, and Hurricane. So Zapdos actually benefits a ton from this, because I think this actually gives Zapdos a merit on Rain. Similar to how we had Coco Rain last gen, I think that Zapdos actually be an OU function on Rain, because I don't think Coco will be allowed after the DLC drops personally, but it might be. I don't think it's going to be allowed at least in non-national XOU, to be honest. But I think Zapdos actually could be a really cool electric on Rain this gen. Weather Ball, obviously giving it an option to hit stuff like grounds is really, really cool, or even just like rock types that might pick it off. Thunder with Hurricane as well on top of that could be really gross. Heavy Duty Boots buffs it a ton as well. So I can definitely see this Pokemon in like an A tier setting. The only reason I'm hesitant to put it in S tier is because while Hurricane is... Actually, I'm going to put it in S tier because Hurricane also helps a lot. It's just a lot more spammable of an option on like sub-toxic sets than Thunderbolt ever was, because it doesn't have switch-ins, at least that are like fully immune to it. Also, I just think in general that the Weather Ball buff is really cool on weather teams. Just, I guess, Weather Ball being buffed to Zapdos, not necessarily that Weather Ball got buffed, as far as I'm aware at least. So yeah, I'm gonna put Zapdos in S tier. Moltres, I'm definitely gonna put Moltres in A tier. I think Moltres is definitely a step up from Articuno, but it's not the Zapdos level. Weather Ball and Mystical Fire are really cool options on this as well, but I don't think Weather Ball is gonna be clicked as much. The Moltres doesn't really have a set that would benefit from running Weather Ball. Mystical Fire is definitely cool on defensive variants. As I mentioned with Boots, that's definitely really cool. Scorching Sand is also really cool coverage. Dual Wing Beat and Burning Jealousy are okay. I do think though that Moltres is probably just a lot better of a defogger defensively than Articuno is with Boots. It's basically just better Articuno, but at least in terms of a broad aspect, it's just a worse Zapdos. I don't think there's a ton of merit to it in terms of running it over Zapdos unless you really need the typing. But I will say though that, to be fair, Charizard is OU right now, so truthfully anything could go, I guess. Moltres could definitely shake up the OU meta, I guess, in that regard. However, to be fair, on some teams, at least Charizard does have merit of solar power over this. So we'll see what happens. Dragonite, I think Dragonite is an undeniable S tier. Dragonite, well, I think that people overhype how much better Dragonite got. It's pretty hard to argue that Dragonite improved dramatically. One, heavy-duty boots are insanely amazing for this Pokemon because of multi-scale. So you can come in and bring this thing in when Dragonite really didn't have an item it ever needed, to the point where people just run Lum just to get an excuse to click Outrage, or like a Bandit set because you didn't need anything else. Or stuff like Z-moves were such a splashable option on this because, again, it didn't need other items. So heavy-duty boots are basically just coming to fill that void that Z-moves leaving Dragonite ended up leaving it. On top of it as well, Dragonite actually got a lot of cool options just in general. Stuff like Hydro Pump is really cool. It's got a ton of moves, but while Dragonite doesn't necessarily want to run all of these, like for example, Fire Spin isn't going to really be clicked. Breaking Swipe's okay, though I will say it has a good VGC merit. Mega Kick and Mega Punch are never getting touched. Body Press, I don't think it'll ever be clicked on this, but Air Slash is pretty cool, especially for a special option that isn't going to miss as often. Hydro Pump is pretty cool. Breaking Swipe is okay, as I mentioned, but the real options that come for this are Dual Impede and Scale Shot. Because Scale Shot gives the option to a Bandit set to actually boost its speed, which I think is really cool. And Dual Impede, as I mentioned, it's a viable flying stab. That's going to hit just under what Fly would have hit for this Pokemon. So anything the Dragonite, even just on the move pool end, probably would warrant like an A tier buff, just because of how improved it got move pool wise. But I think that what really sells it is an S tier, and I think this is probably the best S tier we have so far, personally. Dragonite definitely outshines all these Pokemon by a substantial amount, to the point where I actually think that I'm going to bump Aero and Zapdos down at least. Because Dragonite, I think, personally, looking at it right now, is just substantially better than all those Pokemon by a fair bit. I think just the boots with its typing alone just justify putting it in this tier. I think it's a pretty clear-cut most improved Pokemon out of the Kanto Mons. There's no real arguing that. So with that being said, we're going to get into the Johto Mons. So next up, we have Crobat. So Crobat ended up getting not a ton, but what it did get was actually very important. It did get Dual Impede, which it didn't really need, to be fair, because it obviously had Brave Bird before. Actually, that's really it. But what really shines for Crobat, again, similar with like Boots, I think it just gives us a lot better utility aspect. Though I will say that Crobat does also really need Black Sludge to run those sort of utility aspects, and Dual Impede doesn't really help a ton. I'm gonna put this in B tier, because Dual Impede at least does help more defensive variants not have to take recoils badly, which is really cool in this Pokemon. Boots are definitely not bad, but again, Black Sludge is usually preferred on fatter variants. But there is merit for Boots, and there is merit for Dual Impede, so we're gonna put it in B tier. Next up is Ryko. So Ryko actually is a pretty cool mon as well this gen. So Ryko 1 can run Aura Sphere without having to run Brash Nature, which is already good. Even without the Nature Capsule or the Nature whatever it is, Aura Sphere was also just given to it in general anyway. Weatherball, similar to Zapdos, is really cool on it. Agility, Eerie Impulse, Electric Terrain, Helping Hand were all okay options. It also has Rising Voltage, so already this thing has okay potential as a fast Helping Hand mon at least. Though I guess, to be fair, Helping Hand's +5 priority, so that actually doesn't really matter at all now that I think about it. Was thinking for like VGC, but what this thing really got that is actually insane for is Scald. When every other electric type besides like Raichu and Heliolisk lost their coverage for grounds, and Ryko, such a strong and fast electric type, it's the fastest one that has coverage besides like Coco with Grass Knot. But with that in mind, this is also a really cool Calm Mind option with like Sub-Calm Mind, Scald T-Bolt, or even just Scald Scald T-Bolt, Calm Mind Toxic as well, or like Subtoxic. Could definitely be a really cool mon with pressure. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I think that Ryko definitely shines with like Zapdos on par pretty similarly in my opinion, just because similar to Zapdos, it got coverage for grounds how to run Subtoxic variants a lot more beneficially. So we're gonna put that in A tier. Entei on the other hand really did not get anything. It got Flare Blitz naturally, which is cool, but otherwise, I mean, I guess Scorching Sand helps on special variants. Really isn't a huge deal though. We're gonna put Entei in C tier just because it's not nature locked anymore, which is really cool for it, and Boots are like okay on it. Suicune, it got like Air Slash naturally now. Otherwise, it was like Liquidation, Agility, Weather Ball, Helping Hand. And I got nothing from Armor Tuners. So Suicune, Suicune also doesn't really benefit from boots. It doesn't really benefit from any sort of items that came to the game. It didn't really even care about Air Slash much to begin with, if I'm being honest. Ice Beam was really better in almost all his matchups anyway, for like grasses. So we're gonna put this in D tier. I guess the one thing that Suicune has meriting for it, I guess, is natural Air Slash because of Max moves. But again, there's just better offensive water types for Max anyway. Suicune and Lugia and Ho-Oh are both undeniable S tiers. Lugia never needed an item anyway, so Boots being able to preserve multi-scale is fucking phenomenal as Pokemon. It didn't really even care about its other move pool additions being Dual Beat and Scale Shot, though I will say they're not bad. Hurricane is really cool as Pokemon over like Aeroblast, I guess. But Aeroblast is still really cool anyway. Air Slash is okay. Imprison, actually Imprison could be really cool in like a VGC meta because it is such a fast Pokemon, so going for Imprison could be really cool in this. Helping Hand also is really cool in such a fat Pokemon. So when the Legend meta comes around, Lugia can actually be terrifying in VGC, especially with Boots. Well, it wouldn't really need Boots in that, but I guess in singles though, Boots Lugias could be gross. And Ho-Oh is just an even better version of that because Ho-Oh can regen Boots with Defog now, which is awesome. Ho-Oh also got a lot of cool physical options like Flare Blitz to just hit harder. I believe it was nature locked beforehand as well. Regardless though, just having Flare Blitz in its move pool is really, really cool if it needs a slightly harder hitting option, though I will say that Secret Fire is almost always better. Other options like Mystical Fire and Air Slash aren't going to really matter. Fire Spin isn't going to really matter. Swift won't matter. Helping Hand and Imprison similar to Lugia could be cool. Dueling Beat is also really, really cool just to help preserve HP on this. And then Scorching Sand is okay. So I think though that regardless of Boots kind of make these Pokemon really, really OP in Ubers. So we're going to put them in S tier. Next up, we're going to get into the Gen 3 Pokemon. And we'll start off with Sceptile. So next up with Sceptile. So Sceptile actually got a lot of really cool moves in my opinion that could actually really benefit it, especially in VGC, to be honest. So Sceptile got Solar Blade, Cross Poison, Breaking Swipe, and Dragon Dance. So these moves don't necessarily help at all in VGC if I'm being honest, but they are still really cool. DD Sceptile could be cool in lower tiers. It could be okay at least. Solar Blade is kind of cool, but again, not really needed. This could maybe have you send like a Power set with like Unburden, but again, SD would probably be better than regardless. What I will say though is really cool for this is two moves in its move pool being Grassy Glide and Scale Shot. Scale Shot, in my opinion, isn't going to matter a ton, but Grassy Glide is what really matters because this could actually potentially be useful in VGC on like, or even just in singles on like a niche Unburden team with Grassy Glide could be really cool because you could start Grassy Seed at that point and just start spamming priority Grassy Glide. It's not going to be game changing or anything. Sceptile is still really bad, but I think it's at least merit enough to put it in like a C tier. I don't think, actually I'm going to put it in B tier because it is still really cool. It gives it like an actual viable set, I will say. Whereas the C tier mods is just like, could maybe be additions to sets that it's already running. But I think that Sceptile being able to define its own set, or at least a new set, is really cool. Especially in VGC where it could potentially go for like a Dragon Dance and then just start spamming off like Max Solar Blades, which could be really cool. So I think this has merit. Though I will say that Sceptile is definitely not going to be a meta-changing Pokemon or anything, but I think it has at least some merit there. Blaziken, on the other hand, I think actually got a ton of merit. I'm going to put Blaziken in A tier. One of the biggest things, I think, especially for like Smogon particularly, or even just for like Ubers leagues, I think would be the addition of U-Turn. Because you could actually momentum this Pokemon out without having to worry about speed passing clauses, which is honestly really, really huge for this Pokemon. On top of that as well, Close Combat is such a huge buff for this Pokemon, because the fact it doesn't have to worry about protection shenanigans anymore. Heat Crash isn't really going to matter, or Sphere is really cool in special sets because you don't have to worry about Focus Miss. Revenge and Assurance are going to matter. In terms of armor tutors, Scorching Sand and Coaching, neither of those will really matter. I guess Scorching Sand is okay, but I think that Blaziken is a really, really solid Pokemon now. Well, it was really solid anyway, to be fair, but I think these are really, really amazing move buffs for Blaziken. Swampert, I'm also going to put in A tier, because I think that Swampert, especially with like Bulk Up now, having actual setup is really, really cool on this. On top of that as well, I guess Body Press, it could actually bulk up Body Press, or just go for stuff like High Horsepower, Lariat, Liquidation. All these were moves that Swampert could definitely really, really take advantage of, in my opinion. Sand Dune doesn't really matter. Swift doesn't really matter. I think, though, that's just really, really cool moveset buffs for Swampert. They're not going to be game-changing or anything, but I think they are really important. Next up is Agron. Agron similarly got a lot of cool moveset buffs, but I think they're just to a lesser extent of Swampert's. The only ones that really matter are like High Horsepower and Crunch, but I'm pretty sure, again, similar to like with Nidoking, for example, Agron, I'm almost certain, had Stomping Tantrum before, which yes, it did. So, not a huge buff, but Body Press is really cool in this Pokemon, actually. I think Body Press is insanely awesome in this. Rock Blast is also really cool in this for potential leads. But this is so slow, it's not going to really matter in too many cases anyway, unless it's like Vikable or something like that slow. So I'm going to put Agron in the, oh yeah, Meteor Beam and Steel Roller aren't going to matter at all. So I'm going to put Agron in the C tier. I think Agron has at least a justifiable enough buff with Body Press, but that's really it. Next up is Altaria. False Swipe, Fire Spin, Breaking Swipe, not going to really matter in this. Dueling Beat, not going to matter on this. I mean, Altaria, to be honest, is just, it's so bad. These buffs are just really not going to matter because it has 70 anyway, and it had stuff like, for example, actually it doesn't, did it have Hurricane? Okay, so I guess it didn't have a flying option that was like viable before, because if we look at the flying options, it had like, okay, so you know, we'll put it in C tier, because Dueling Beat at least gives it a viable flying option to hit with, because all these other options didn't even get like Hurricane, so we'll put it there. Next up is Cradily. It gets Grassy Glide, Meteor Beam, and then for the non-armor tutors, it gets Mud Shot, Rock Blast, Dig, Grassy Turn, and Power Up. So I think I'm purely gonna put this in C tier because of Power Up. Cradily hits Piss Poor though. Actually, hold on. Did Cradily have a viable attack stat? That's what it's gonna come down to. Okay, that's 81. So yeah, we'll put it in C tier. Armaldo was next, and Armaldo I think pretty similarly isn't gonna really matter. Mud Shot, Shadow Claw. I don't know how it's just getting Shadow Claw now, and then Meteor Beam. Armaldo's a D tier. Armaldo really didn't matter. Next up would be Absol. Absol, I don't actually know what Absol got, to be honest. But it was just, oh, Close Combat. Actually, Close Combat's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna put this in C tier. Gives it a viable option to hit steals. Absol not needing to run like Fire Blast to hit steals is really, really cool, actually. Also, it's a nice option for Darks if it doesn't want to run Playoff. Also, not having to run Superpower is really, really nice because it can actually run an attack set. It can run an offensive set that doesn't need to drop its attack stat. So we're gonna put that in a C tier. Walrein get a lot, but again, it's similar how I don't know how much it's gonna save this Pokemon, because like Hydro Pump, it's just better Surf. Liquidation, just better Waterfall. Icicle Sphere is really cool on this actually. Body Press is okay on this. With that said, it also got Steel Roller. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna put this in C tier. It doesn't really define a new set for Walrein. It's just cool options. They're all really cool options. Meteor Beam, Scale Shot for Relicanth, and then on the non-armor set, Relicanth got Rock Blast, Liquidation, Body Press. Similarly, again, it doesn't really define a new set, so we're going to put it in C tier. Mence, on the other hand, actually got a lot really going for it. For one, it gets Hurricane, which in terms of special Mence is actually really, really cool, because Salamence did have a lot of merit as a potential special mon. It has like really good coverage for it, and I mean 110 special attack is nothing to scoff at. Also, Boots, again, kind of save this Pokemon. Air Slash is really cool. Breaking Swipes is really cool for VGC at least. Dueling Beat and Scale Shot are also really cool if it doesn't want to run Dragonite. It's like just run like a 4 attack set, or like 3 attacks with Roost. I'm going to put Mence in A tier, purely for the fact that I don't think that it saves itself to the same scale that Dragonite does, and Dragonite is basically just a better Mence at this point. Only reason to run Mence is just for like the Moxie boost, and I think Mence is probably one of the best A tiers at this point. However, I don't think it's enough to put it in the same tier as Dragonite, because these 3 Pokemon just outshine everything. So yeah. Next up is Metagross. So in terms of the tutor end, it got Expanding Force, Meteor Beam, and Steel Roller. And otherwise, it got Psycho Cut, Cosmic Power, and Brutal Swing. We're going to put Metagross in the C tier option. Metagross does have at least an okay special attack set to take advantage of the special stuff. Psycho Cut is really cool and not have to miss. Cosmic Power is okay, but like it doesn't really benefit from any of these moves to an insane degree. Next up is the Regis. I'm going to just bang these all out really quick. The Reggie Rock got Body Press. That's all it really needed. Rock Blast is cool too. We're gonna put this in B tier. Reggie Rock actually has a lot of merit to running this with like an Iron Defense set. It could be a cool low tier option. A lot more so than Agron, because it doesn't have to worry about a 4 times weakness in 2 different types. Regice, Icicle Sphere, Heavy Slam, and then nothing for the Armor Tutors. This is a D tier Pokemon. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Registeel though, I'm gonna actually put Registeel in the A tier end because of the additions of Heavy Slam and Body Press are really cool. Also, the fact that Registeel, with like an Iron Defense set, it's just a better Regirock. I don't think that, it's not like either getting stabbed from this, and Registeel also having a nice Spidef stat to also take hits without needing to worry about going for like a Fizz Def leaning set. It'll still naturally take those hits. Its typing is still a lot better. So we're going to put Registeel in A tier. The Lotties, I think the Lotties both go in S tier, undeniably. I could go on about how much coverage they got. They got a ton of coverage. Psycho Cut doesn't really matter for either, unless it's like a DD variant, which Lottie also got DD addition to its move pool. The rest is the same additions, being Mystical Fire, Air Slash, Breaking Swipe, Agility, Tri-Attack, Baton Pass, Future Sight, and Aerosphere. So Aerosphere and Mystical Fire are huge for these Pokemon, gives them steel coverage options that aren't Earthquake, so they no longer need to run mixed options to hit steals. Baton Pass is amazing as like a dry pass option. While it will not matter in OU at all, it's really, really cool to see these Pokemon be able to dry pass out in draft format, which is awesome on choice variants, because these Pokemon usually just need stabs plus like 1 coverage in most choice matchups. So then last slot usually goes to like Trick, Defog, or in this case now, Baton Pass. On top of that as well, in terms of the armor tutors, he's got Dueling Beat and Scale Shot. These aren't going to matter a ton, but they do give some niche matchups, especially to Latios. So we're going to put these in S tier. I think they improved enough. The coverage was insanely needed for these Pokemon. Now we get to the Kyogre. So as I mentioned, Kyogre did not improve at all. Kyogre is already a nasty Pokemon, and while I do acknowledge that Kyogre has physical merit, in that physical merit, you're clicking Waterfall, or I think this thing gets Liquidation. If it doesn't, Waterfall is still strong enough anyway. You're never clicking Heavy Slam this Pokemon. Groudon is next. Groudon I actually think has a little bit of a cool option here with Heat Crash. I think Heat Crash with the Sun Boost is really, really cool, especially on Primal Groudon at least. Scorching Sand also on special offensive Groudons is really, really cool because it's a nice defensive Groudon option utility to burn. So we're going to put Groudon in B tier actually. I think Scorching Sand on defensive Groudon actually could be a really cool option, especially in like anything goes on Primal Groudon. That could be a really, really cool option on Groudon in my opinion. Rayquaza. So Rayquaza actually also I think I'm going to put in the A tier because of the fact that, actually I'm going to put Rayquaza in S tier. Boots are really, really cool as Pokemon, on top of also stuff like Breaking Swipe. Hydro Pump is really cool on mixed options, though I will say that Surf will probably suffice. Cosmic Power won't matter, but Breaking Swipe is really cool in VGC at least. On top of this as well, Scale Shot is really, really cool on Bandit sets because Dragon is so spammable in Ubers. If you clear Fairies, this thing in late game just starts clicking Bandit Scale Shot, or even just like Life Orb Scale Shot with like Dragon Ascent on top of that, and it'll honestly just start destroying teams. Rayquaza isn't a Pokemon that necessarily needs an offensive boost, but even then, the elephant in the room, the SD Rayquazas that are insanely scary, that are just running like Dragon, Earthquake, and Extreme Speed and anything goes, would love Scale Shot in their arsenals. So I'm going to put Rayquaza in S tier. On top of that with also Boots, this Pokemon is just so much more improved now. Next up, we're going to go all the way down to Spiritomb. So Spiritomb has a few options for it. Lash Out and Poltergeist, and then Hex and Phantom Force. I'm going to put Spiritomb in B tier. I think Poltergeist is really, really cool in this Pokemon. It gives it actual physical merit. On top of that as well, Lash Out is okay for a VGC end. Hex is cool for a status end for like a Subtoxic Calm Mind variant. I know that's been a bit run on Spiritombs before, and I think a Hex could be really cool on that. I was shocked it didn't get it before, if I'm being honest. So yeah. Next up, we're going to go into Garchomp. Armor Tutors did this thing dirty. Well, non-Armor Tutors did this thing dirty. It really only got Breaking Swipe. Never going to really matter on Garchomp because it's not going to be... I guess it's okay. But what really matters though is Scale Shot and Scorching Sand to an extent. Defensive Garchomp would love Scorching Sand as a nice defensive option, especially if you're trying to get around like terrain. For example, Scorching Sand is great to burn stuff. On top of that as well, Scale Shot is really, really cool for SD variants. I'm going to put this in A tier. I think its typing merits that alone with benefiting from something like a Scorching Sand plus a Scale Shot. On top of that as well, it's a really cool speed stat in this format, which I think that in general, Garchomp just benefits from running these sort of options a ton. So +1 Scale Shot in like a Wi-Fi format right now is going to matter a ton more than it would have in, let's say, last format, where there was a lot of other Pokemon that could easily outscarf it. There aren't as many options this gen, even with the Mons coming back. So I think that this will merit a ton for Scale Shot SD variants. So just run through metagames. Next up is Electivire. Electivire doesn't really get a lot extra. It's Weather Ball, Lariat, and then Rising Voltage. This is a D tier Pokemon. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's a bad Pokemon. Magmortar, Mystical Fire, Weather Ball, and then for Armor Tutors, Burning Jealousy, and Scorching Sand. I'm going to put this in C tier because it has reliable coverage for stuff like Rock types that no longer needs to run Focus Blast for. As far as I'm aware, at least Magmortar did not get Earth Power, and if it did, then I am very sorry for lying to you guys. Yeah, it only got Earthquake, so having the option for Rocks, it's not Focus Blast, is really cool. We'll put Magmortar in C tier. It's not a good Pokemon though. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, these all got pretty much the same moves. In fact, actually, I think Azelf's the only one that got anything different. Drain Punch, Psycho Cut, Draining Kiss, Metronome, Tri Attack, Baton Pass, Encore, Nasty Plot, Store Power, Play Off, and then for Tutors, Expanding Force for Uxie and Mesprit. I will say that I'm going to put Uxie in B tier. I'm going to put Uxie in A tier and Mesprit in B tier. I do think that Uxie basically just takes advantage of these options better because of its stat line. I do think that Mesprit still is really, really cool now, though, because obviously Store Power sets are really, really awesome with this, especially with Nasty Plot and Cosmic Power, which they both already had. At least I know that Uxie already had it. I'm fairly certain that Mesprit had it as well. If we look at the mons that did get these options, that would go to, let's see. So actually, I don't think either of these Pokemon got it, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. So I guess though that this is really cool on like Combine plot variants, or I'm pretty sure that UC at least had options like Iron Defense, if I'm not mistaken. I know that UC has set up options like Nasty Plot and Combine are really cool. So it actually didn't seem to get anything. Okay, well, I mean, I guess it still isn't bad by any means. I mean, Sword Power Combine is still really, really awesome on this Pokemon. But I think I'm going to bump him down a tier. I'm going to put Mesprit in C tier and UC in B tier. I thought that had Cosmic Power, to be honest. Azelf, on the other hand, I think I'm going to probably put in B tier as well. Because it's got different options, but like Self-Destruct isn't going to matter. Assurance isn't going to really matter. Drain Punch is actually really cool. Psycho Cut is really cool. Draining Kiss is really cool. Metronome isn't going to matter. Tri-Attack isn't going to matter. Baton Pass is actually also really cool on this. Encore is really cool. Actually, Baton Pass won't matter. It has U-Turn. But Encore is really cool. Store Power is okay. Playoff is really cool as well. I'm going to put this in B tier because this does give merit to SD Azelfs, which I believe Azelf already had a SD if I'm not mistaken. If it did not, I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, so it doesn't have Sword Dance. I'm going to put it in C tier then. I thought it had SD. I guess it doesn't though. It is what it is. Next is Dialga. Dialga and Palkia, I believe, both got pretty similar movesets. Breaking Swipe, Body Slam, Heavy Slam, Body Press. Then for Armor Tutor, Scale Shot for Dialga, and Dueling Beat plus Scale Shot for Palkia. I think I'm going to put these both in the D tier personally. Actually, I'm going to put Dialga in D tier and Palkia in C tier. Purely for the fact that Palkia's never going to really benefit from any of these moves. Dialga, on the other hand, could actually benefit from Body Press. And on top of that, also Heavy Slam plus Scale Shot could actually give some nice merit to physical Dialga. Especially Dialga just having such a good physical attack stat, and even just a really good physical defense stat to run like a potential Iron Defense set with Body Press. Really good typing as well for it. I think Dialga could be, if it could finally have a nice niche again. So we'll see what happens. Heatran, we're going to also probably put in the, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to put Heatran in the B tier. Yeah, we're going to put Heatran in B tier. I think Body Press is cool on it. Scorching Sand is okay, but it's just another burn option for it. Like, it's just Lava Plume for it, but ground now. Otherwise, this thing really doesn't benefit from anything it got. It is what it is, though. Heatran's still a really good Pokemon. It didn't really need any buffs. It didn't get any. Regigigas. So Regigigas finally got rest. Big buff for Regigigas. Has a lot of cool coverage options like Body Press, High Horsepower, Lariat, Heat Crash. Endure is like okay on it, I guess. Body Slam, Protect. It got Protect as well. Rest, Mega Kick, Mega Punch. And then for Armor Tutor, Terrain Pulse. Regigigas easily is an S tier buff. Being able to finally stall out its ability to be meritable. This Pokemon's not going to be great or anything, but it's finally usable. Now it's not going to be anything insane. It's still going to be a very low tier Pokemon. This makes it from like I'm grabbing just a meme to I'm grabbing it and it might have a low tier functionality as a low tier normal type. So we'll see what happens. Giratina got Phantom Force finally. Breaking Swipe and Body Slam are okay on it. Dueling Beat and Poltergeist. I think Poltergeist alone puts this thing in A tier just because, actually I'm going to put this in B tier. Similar to Spiritomb, I think it was a necessary buff, but I don't think a Giratina really needed a ton else to it. Actually, Giratina Origin could love that a lot. I'm going to put this in A tier because of Giratina Origin. Next up is Cress. Now, Cress got a few things that are really, really scary for it. For one, Power Stop and Guard Stop are okay, Body Slam as well. Cosmic Power Stored Power, though, I think is really cool. This Expanding Force is okay. We're going to put Cress in B tier. I don't think this is game shooting for Cress or anything. It is still Cress. It's going to have really bad 4 moveset syndrome trying to fit on the moves that do help it as much as they are beneficial. Really, only reason it's not A tier is just because it has kind of bad 4 moveset syndrome at that point. Victini next up, it got Mega Punch, got Mega Kick, Fire Spin, Swift, Power Swap, Guard Swap, Speed Swap. None of those matter. What does kind of help though is Baton Pass and Encore also don't matter. Blaze Kick, U-Turn, Blaze Kick, Future Sight, and Mystical Fire are really nice options on it. On top of also Expanding Force and Scorching Sands especially. I think what really is going to push Victini to the S tier is the fact that it breaks really well on top of also having heavy duty boots now. Victini, especially in such a limited metagame, is going to break a lot more noticeably to the where it's not even going to need a choice item like boots to help, a band to help it break. So we're going to put Victini in S tier. I think that boots is going to really, really help it a ton. Next up, we're going to get into the Audino. So Audino got Mega Punch, Mega Kick, Cute Impact, Body Slam, Endurance, Swift. D tier. Enough said. Caracosta, Mud Shot, Rock Blast, Endure, Muddy Water, Razor Shell, and then for Armor Tutors, Meteor Beam. D tier. What are you running on that that's going to actually benefit it? It's a physical one. It's not going to care about Meteor Beam, as cool as it is. And then everything else just has better options for. Archaeops. Archaeops I'm actually going to put in the A tier. I think Archaeops with boots is going to be really, really cool as a non-stash option. Because especially there are always those matchups where Arcap's like just shy of ever breaking a sash and you know it going in, but you're gonna run it anyway just to guarantee hazards. Boosts are actually really cool in this Pokemon because it has a really cool speed tier in this meta. Dual Beat as well is really cool for like a nice lead option with like Rock Blast. I think this gets Rock Blast if I'm not mistaken. It does have Rock Blast. Rock Blast plus Dual Beat are also really cool options for lead for this. Assurance and Swift aren't gonna matter. Endure is not gonna matter, though it could have like niche if you like roost the next turn, but it's such a, you're never going to run that with Defeatist. You're going to need to be like some sort of Heat Lord to really try and ever make that work, and even then it's not going to work that well. Air Slash is okay. It does have a cool special attacks that I will say. Lash Out and Meteor Beam are okay, but again, it's Dual Beat plus Boots. I think really set this thing to an A tier option for how much it's improved. Cryogonal is next. Now Cryogonal I don't think really improved a lot at all. Ice Cold Sphere, Avalanche, Endurance, Self-Destruct don't matter. Triple Axle doesn't really matter. It has piss poor attack. I think it's like 35 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 50. Okay, so it's close enough. It used to be 35. It was either that or defense was 35. What I will say though is Boots helps us a ton. Boots helps it enough as a rapid spin option alongside its speed where I'm gonna put it in B tier. Next was Torn. It got, in terms of the Torn and Thundy can actually be done pretty similarly because while they got different moves, it's the same similar buffs. Scaraface and Weatherball are gonna matter. Well, Weatherball actually be cool on rain for both of them, to be honest, because these are both really cool rain mons, especially in VGC. There's Assurance, not gonna matter. Body Slam is gonna matter. Endure is not gonna matter. Nasty Plot for Torn is the big thing, because it does put it on par with Thundy now as a viable option, whereas Thundy got Aerial plus Electric Ball. They both also got Lash Out, and then Thundy got Rising Voltage. I will say that I'm gonna put Thundy in the C tier because Lash Out Defiant can actually be really, really cool in this Pokemon personally. And then I'm gonna put Torn in the B tier, because I think especially on like a regen Torn, Nasty Plot could be really cool. However, on Prankster Torn, that could also be really cool because it can just spam Hurricanes at that point with its 111 speed in the rain, and that could be really gross. Next up, we're going to do Landorus. So Landorus, in terms of its non-armor tutors, got nothing useful. It's Self-Destruct, Worst Explosion, Scaraface not going to matter, Weatherball not going to matter in this. It's not going to benefit from it at all. Sandtomb, Body Slam, Endure not going to matter. What I will say though is Scorching Sand actually is really cool in defensive Lando. Especially defensive Lando T, I think it actually benefits us a lot. But I'm going to put it in C tier because, again, it doesn't really change anything. Lando's still not going to be great in terms of running a special variant. But I could at least not Lando T. It's not going to be great in terms of running a special variant, but it could be okay. Genesect next, it didn't get any armor tutors, though it did get Swift, Assurance, Leech Life, Blaze Kick, and Endure. Leech Life, I think, is the only thing that merits this in being in C tier. Just because of the fact that Leech Life is cool recovery on this, especially if it's not going to want to click U-turn on a certain turn. Could be an okay option. Otherwise, though, this is definitely a C tier. So now we're into the tail end of things, where we're pretty much at just Legends at this point, and the Legends didn't really get a lot. The only non-Legends are the next 3 Pokemon, actually, and that's it. Unless you count, like, Naganadel as a non-Legend, or, like, the Ultra Beast as non-Legends. But, like, otherwise, it's just Legends and, like, those 3. So it should be pretty quick. The Fossils next. Tyrantrum actually didn't get a ton useful, though I will say that what it did get useful is really, really useful. Close Combat is like the only useful move, otherwise it has like high horsepower, which is okay, but I'm pretty sure I had Tyrantrum before. Breaking Swipe's okay. The rest is like Endure, Body Slam, Assurance, Rock Blast, Scary Face. Rock Blast is okay. Lash Out, Meteor Beam, Scale Shot. Scale Shot actually is really cool to think about it. I'm gonna put this in B tier because of Scale Shot plus Close Combat. I think those are actually gonna be really, really cool on this. Because Tyrantrum is a Pokemon that breaks so well anyway, you don't really need a DD variant. However, Scale Shot is naturally attacking, could actually be really cool on this Pokemon. On top of that as well, Lash Out's like okay because it's bulky enough to really worry about an opponent trying to drop stats. Though it's such a niche thing, it's really not going to be mattering on this thing at all. Rock Blast though is really cool for leads, and it's offensive enough to really break with like a Bandit set to really break leads with that, or like a Scarf variant to outpace like flying type Sash Pokemon. Close Combat, again, really, really cool if it doesn't want to run Earthquake in a matchup to hit Steals. And it just hits harder than Earthquake anyway. I've noticed that I'm running Close Combat a lot more in Haxorus than I am Earthquake these days. So I think for that alone, I mean, it's just going to be a worse Haxorus, but it could be a really, really solid UU threat right now, personally. So we're going to put that in B tier. Amora and Aurorus it still didn't get Aurora Veil. That's all I need to know to put this thing in D tier. When this thing gets Aurora Veil, we could talk, but until then, I mean, Weatherball is not going to matter. It's too slow to ever pop it, but it's okay, I guess. Mud Shot, not going to matter. Rock Blast, not going to matter. Body Slam, not going to matter. Endure and Ice Cold Sphere, not going to matter. And then Meteor Beam isn't going to matter. If this thing had, like, no Blizzard, or if, like, Hail didn't make Blizzard 100% accurate, we could talk about putting this thing in C tier because Weatherball, but that's not going to matter. Carbink, Shipmon, literally nothing this thing gets matters. I could put this in D tier even if this thing got a perfect moveset, but even then, it didn't get anything good. It got Charm, Sand Tomb, Guard Swap, Endure, and Body Press. Body Press is like the most beneficial. Misty Explosion is like okay on this. Meteor Beam is okay on this. Neither are gonna matter. Now we get into the good stuff. We get a lot more S tier beneficials, or at least like a few more. So next up is Xerneas, which got Swift doesn't matter, Smart Strike okay, Body Slam doesn't matter. Actually, Smart Strike I will say is cool because of Fairy Aura. Beating opposing Fairy types is actually really cool in this Pokemon personally, because it doesn't have as much that's going to take advantage of Fairy Aura. However, Fairy Aura again is going to probably benefit a lot more matchups because of its own Fairy Stab, so it's like an okay option. Body Slam and Endure are going to matter. Playoff is really, really awesome in this Pokemon though, because for everyone who doesn't know, Xerneas has as high of an attack stat as it has a special attack stat. So potential banded Xerneas, as I did mention in my Uber's team builder, could be terrifying. Draining Kiss is also really, really cool on Geomancy variants. While it does hit a lot less hard than Moonblast would, just the option to run a more defensive Geomancy set and get recovery back could help a lot with long term. On top of that as well, Misty Explosion's okay on this, but it's not great. I'm gonna put Xerneas in A tier. I think Xerneas benefits a lot from. Actually, I'm gonna put Xerneas in S tier. While it didn't get the same sort of buffs that make these Pokemon really good, which is mostly Boots or Ready Escape's ability to stall out its options, and then these it got a substantial amount of coverage. I think just running physical Xerneas gives it enough merit to put it in S tier because of the fact that this coverage is so good physically as well. It hits close combat as on top of that. So not having to worry about missing 30% of the time to hit a steel type is so nice because it could be a really cool lure. And then as I mentioned, Draining Kiss, it helps just substantially live a lot longer. Veltal didn't really need anything. It got Swift Payback, Body Slam, Endure, and then Armor Tutors, Duel and Beat, and Lash Out. I'm gonna put this thing in like B tier because Boots do help this thing a ton actually. On top of Dueling, be giving a nice physical merit to this thing, not having to run like acrobatics anymore or some shit. So we're gonna put it in B tier. It's not gonna be game changing though. Special Veltal is still miles better, but physical again same attack stat, so you could definitely run it, and it still have to get some nice mileage out of it. Next up, we're gonna get into Zygarde. Zygarde actually has some cool options this gen. Swift Payback aren't gonna matter. Breaking Swipe is okay. Body Slam is okay. Reversal is okay. Endure is okay. High Horsepower is okay. What actually really makes this thing cool is the Armor Tutors. So this thing got Scorching Sand, Scale Shot, and Skitter Smack, all of which I think actually has a really cool niche on this Pokemon. We're gonna put this in the C tier, though I will say it's probably one of the better C tier options. I think it's probably like as much better as Lando is. Skitter Smack is basically as much better in term, well, as viable Scorching Sand is on Zygarde, but Arrows is such a clickable move. This thing will really only matter. I think the only time I'd ever really justify clicking it is if I'm not clicking, if I'm too scared to click Outrage in matchups like Dual Fairy, and I want an option to hit grasses. But even then, Outrage is still such a good option on this. I'd rather just click that. And Break Swipe now is cool to not have to lock in. Actually, I'm gonna put this in B tier because not having to lock into a Dragon move besides Dragon Tail is actually really, really cool in this Pokemon. Next up, Mega Diancie. S tier, automatic S tier. This thing got, it's basically the same coverage that the Lottie's got, being stuff like Mystical Fire. I got Draining Kiss, which is cool on it. Baton Pass is awesome in this Pokemon actually. It got pretty much the same coverage as the Lottie's. You got a lot of useless stuff like Charm, Fake Tears, Sand Tomb, Guard Swap, Metrodome, Amnesia, Endure, Encore. Oh, actually, Encore is really cool, I will say. Store Power isn't going to matter, though I will say it could have some nice niche. Ally Switch is okay, especially in a VGCN, that could actually be really annoying. Playoff and Body Press, so it's basically like the Lottie's and the Xerneas put together. So yeah, Body Press is also really cool for like Iron Defense variants. Meteor Beam and Misty Explosion are okay options, but this thing is an easy S tier. It's probably more S tier than most of these Pokemon. I'd say like maybe these three outshine it more, but everything else is probably more of S tier than. Volcanion, it got Scorching Sand on the special end, and then Fire Spin, Scary Face, Rain Dance, Mud Shot, Thunder Fang, Misty Terrain, Focus Energy, Endure, Heavy Slam, Heat Crash, Body Press. This is probably like a C tier option. It's cool with Scorching Sand at least. It's a nice another 30% burn in its arsenal, as if it didn't have enough already to 30% burn. So we're gonna put this thing in the C tier. It's just a better option than Earth Power for Volcanion particularly. Now we're gonna finally get into the Gen 7 ones. So next up, we're gonna have Coco. Coco is a pretty easy S tier. It got options to playoff. It finally got playoff, as we were all shocked it didn't get last gen, and close combat. Other options were pretty useless, like Rest is never going to be run because it can't even sleep. Swift isn't going to matter. Assurance is going to matter. Your Impulse won't matter. Endure is okay. Stored Power and Rising Voltage, however, basically, when we were just sick of running a especially and wanted a physical variance in Coco, we finally have more reasons to run Special Coco. On top of that as well, Mystic Explosion's like okay, especially when you're getting the VGC matchups where you might want to like pivot out of Coco, I guess, but it's such a low use option, it's not going to really matter. And then Terrain Pulse again, It's okay, but Rising Voltage is just a better option of that. I got why I got it. Next up is Lele. Lele is also going to be an S tier option because of Expanding Force. In VGC, just having a spread Psychic option is so gross. That's all it really needed, to be honest, to be S tier. Mist Explosion and Terrain Pulse, again, similarly useless to Coco. This thing, again, Rest isn't going to matter, Charm won't matter, Power Swap, Guard Swap, Speed Swap won't matter, Psychic Cut won't matter, and Endure won't matter. Future Sight is actually really cool on this, especially with Terrain boosting as well. It'll be really gross. Store Power and Calm Mind Lele could actually be really cool, especially because it already does have Draining Kiss. Player Off isn't going to matter on this, but I think that Expanding Force alone, with the spread Psychic option of VGC is going to be so gross on Specs Lele. Boolu, another easy S tier. Grassy Glide was all it's needed, but it also got a lot of other options. Boolu actually, probably of the top, uses the most deserving S tier in my opinion, though Coco could give it a good run for its money. The similarly useless Misty Explosion and Terrain Pulse, but it did get options like Mega Punch, Rest, Revenge, all useless. Bullet Seed is actually really cool on Boolu personally, and you'd have to convince me otherwise. I love multi-hit moves personally, so I think that holds a lot of stake with me. The swaps for Power and Guard don't matter, Endure doesn't matter, though it probably matters the most on Boolu, if anything, in a very loose sense. But like Salaxes could actually be cool on Boolu if you're not running Grassy Glide. Close Combat and Player Off are awesome on this. Dark Slayer and High Horsepower are awesome on this, because especially High Horsepower gives the option to hit steals that aren't like dropping its defenses, which is awesome. It also gives an option to hit poisons now, which is awesome, besides Zen Hypo, which can miss. High Horsepower can miss too, but it's less of a miss chance. Store Power is like okay, but again, never gonna really run it. Easy S tier. Finny, I think I'm gonna put Finny in the B tier because it doesn't really change what Finny runs, but it does give it a lot of nice options with like Draining Kiss is really cool. Otherwise, it's like Rest, Dive, Guard Swap, Endure, Sword Power, Player Off. Sword Power is okay. Really just Calm Mind variants, which to be fair, Calm Mind is a lot more common, at least from what I've seen in VGC, in comparison to how uncommon it is in singles. There's more Calm Mind going around in VGC than there is in singles, though it's not common in either from what I remember correctly, though I know that Finny did have a point where Calm Mind was a cool option on it. Flip Turn is really cool for momentum on Finny actually, but it has such 4-bound moveset syndrome anyway, it's not gonna matter. Misty Explosion won't really matter a ton, though it might have merit on the Calm Mind Finny, I guess, in VGC at least. Terrain Pulse is gonna matter. It's a B tier option. Draining Kiss was all it really needed though. Nice recovery. And then Rest also is like okay on it, especially because Finny can at least devlog his own terrain away to get the rest up. Next up is Nihilego. Nihilego didn't really get anything cool, though I will say Hex is a really cool option on this, especially with T-Spikes. Rock Slide, Rock Tomb, Cross Poison, Body Slam, and Endure won't matter. Rock Tomb is like the most useful of those though. Corrosive Gas and Meteor Beam are okay as well. I'm gonna put Nihilego in C tier. I've actually used Nihilego in a DLC format without the Armor Tutors. I didn't think it mattered a ton, though I will say that I read Hex a few times. I think it's a usable option, though it doesn't change how Nihilego runs. Next up, we're gonna get into Buzzwole, Revenge, Body Slam, Close Combat, Lariat, and High Horsepower, and then on the Armor Tutor end, Coaching and Dueling Beat. Definitely a B tier mon. I think Close Combat is really cool on this Pokemon personally. Lariat is also really cool, especially with all the Fizz Def and like Iron Defense setup mons. Lariat could be a cool option, especially for getting around Psychics. That could be nice. High Horsepower is okay. Pheromos is next. Assurance, Endure, Close Combat, and then Skitter, Smack, and Coaching. Definitely a B tier option. Actually, I'm going to put Pheromos in A. While Close Combat doesn't seem like a huge buff for this, physically, not having to worry about killing yourself off the high jump kick, that was easily one of the quickest ways to kill off Pheromos on a physical set. So, while Close Combat seems like such a minor buff for this Pokemon, it's such a game changer for physical variants to no longer have to worry about that. On top of that as well, Skitter Smack is a really cool option physically that if you don't want to click U-turn in a matchup, I think this is a really A tier Pokemon now for like how much it's improved. It's such minor buffs, but they help this Pokemon substantially. Circuitry got Rising Voltage, which is cool, Endure and Electro Ball. I think, honestly, B tier enough. I could definitely see like a Rising Voltage pair with Coco in this metagame and destroying teams, especially with like a Salix set or like on a Tailwind team. This could be really, really cool in my opinion, because of just how much it's going to nuke teams. In singles, this would easily be a C tier, maybe even a D tier in all honesty, but I think just with how much it averages out, I would personally put this in like an A tier if it was just a VGC list. However, because of that, I'm going to put it in B tier. I think that it averages out that well. And again, Tailwind teams with Rising Voltage on like a Coco and Circuitry Electric spam could be really cool. At least if you had good ground options, you would need really good ground counterplay to run that, to be fair. But if your Tailwind setters like Whimsicott, that's already really good options. Or if you ran this in like a Tailwind Rain team with like Torn, really, really solid. Or like Pelipper Rain, your Tailwind, really, really solid. Next up is Celesteela. Self-Destruct, Body Slam, Endure, Mega Horn, Cosmic Power, and then Grassy Glide, Steel Roller. I'm gonna put this in B tier as well. I think this could be like decent. Steel Roller is really actually cool in this for like getting rid of terrain in VGC. This is a Pokemon that I could definitely see running it. Cosmic Power also is really gross in this, like, Leech sets. However, I think it's gonna have trouble running it. I think if Steel didn't have such bad form moveset syndrome already, I would put it in A tier with these buffs, but I think it's purely why. Kartana's an S tier. Anyone who wants to tell me otherwise can fuck off. Solar Blade is really cool on this on Sun teams, but it's not gonna matter a ton. Screech and Endure won't matter. What matters though is Grassy Glide. Grassy Glide with such a good speed stat and such a good attack stat, this is going to be a meta-defining Pokemon, and I will safely say that. And not in draft, but in OU at least, and in VGC, meta-defining Pokemon right here. It already is, even before that. But Grassy Glide, this is just running Band every fucking matchup now, and it doesn't need to worry about it. And if you prep for Band and it's a Sash SD set with Grassy Glide, you're fucked. If you're prepping for Band or SD and you're not counting for Scarf, and you're just running Scarf Woodhammer, you're fucked. And it's such an easy bluff too to do those, because you could just run a Boolu and automatically the first thought is Grassy Glide Band. And then you just click Terrain Woodhammer with a Scarf set, and you're getting duked. Easy S tier buff. Grassy Glide is such a minor thing on this, but it fixes so many issues with Kartana. Next up is Guzzlord. Guzzlord got Mega Punch, Mega Kick, Body Slam, Amnesia, Endure, Heat Crash, High Horsepower, Body Press, and then Lash Out Seal Roller. I'm gonna give this like a B tier. I think it's bad enough to actually take advantage of Lash Out personally. It's one of the few Pokemon I can actually legitimately see myself running it on. Also, Steel Roller is like okay coverage for fairies, especially, but a lot of fairies, it would really need to be in Trick Room to actually take advantage of that. But I could definitely see it as an okay special attack stat. Otherwise, I mean, maybe like Amnesia could be okay on this, but I don't see it ever being justified. Heat Crash and High Horsepower and Body Press are cool, especially with Beast Boost variants. Body Press could be cool. That's really it. Naganadel, I'm gonna give this thing A tier purely because of T-Spikes. It gives Naganadel an option outside of like just running like special variants with like Specs or like Life Orb 3 attacks. I think that Endure is okay on this, Pin Missile's okay on this, Giga Impact, Swift, Assurance won't matter. Cross Poison on the Dragonite variants this thing can now run is like okay, but it's not gonna really want to run that anyway. Hex plus T-Spikes is really cool on this though. Breaking Swipe's okay on this. In terms of the armor data mine, it got Dueling Beat, which again, supporting the new Dragonite's vibe is really cool. I think that personally with such a fast T-Spiker in the metagame in Ubers, that'll actually take a lot of viability out of Greninja, because I think Greninja will be run for dual spikes. I think this could actually pressure a lot of T-Spikes a lot more threateningly than Greninja ever could in Ubers, especially the fact that Greninja is no longer around in the Wi-Fi meta at least. This actually has a lot of meta as just taking Greninja's place in all honesty as a fast T-Spike option. Now, I believe that Xerneas also gets T-Spikes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it does get T-Spikes. So as a more offensive T-Spike option, though, Naganadel could definitely run that role. I can definitely get the argument for putting this in B tier, I'm not gonna lie, but I think this has enough merit to offensively pressure T-Spikes to where I could justify it. Next up is Stakataka. This thing got Body Press, it got Horsepower, Heat Crash, Heavy Slam, Earthquake, all really cool options on it. I don't know why Earthquake's listed actually. This definitely had Earthquake before, if I'm being honest. If this didn't have Earthquake before, yeah, it had Earthquake before, so I don't know why that's listed. Endure, Body Slam, Mega Kick won't matter, and then Meteor Beam and Steel Roller won't matter. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Actually, I'm gonna put this in A tier as well. I think Body Press in this monstrous Fizz Def stack could actually give Trick Room options with a Fizz Def not attack boost, not defense minus nature. Could actually be really cool on this, because what's gonna switch in on that? Absolutely nothing. Because just how monstrous this will hit, and it'll boost its defense stat just by killing stuff. So I think actually this could give Fizz Def Trick Room options a lot of merit. Finally, Blcephalon. I'm gonna give Blcephalon also an A tier. I think it's just a worse Victini personally in its buffs. It got Expanding Forces, Scorching Sand for armor tutors, and Fire Punch, Solar Beam, Fire Spin, Self-Destruct, Rock Blast, Shadow Claw, Mystical Fire, Zen, Encore, and Endure. If this got Poltergeist, I would be inclined to put it in A tier because it does still have a really cool physical attack stat and special attack stat. So I think that it's literally just a worse Victini. It's just a worse Victini. Every good thing I've said about Victini applies to Blcephalon, just on a less extensive scale. So that's gonna be it. This is the order for how much I think stuff will improve in the coming games. As I mentioned, obviously, don't take this to heart. I could very well be misrepresenting some stuff. Like Pheromosa might not be as beneficial with close combat as I'm thinking it is, or maybe Naganadel is gonna run T-Spikes as beneficially as I think it will. Or maybe Zapdos will be an S tier improved threat to where it's going to be like benefiting from Hurricane so much its role will be just defined by it. So don't take this to heart. This is my personal opinions on what I think improved the most to the least improved. So if you guys enjoyed, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you guys in the next video tomorrow with our UBL match. Peace out, guys.